Yo, 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 yo. CTB, Chin Tuck Boxing. I'm your boy Jay Slay. Say what up to him, man.
What's up, everybody? Remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification button, comment. You know why? Because we love boxing and you love boxing.
Most definitely, most definitely. This is where the fight fans come. Let's get these delicious entrees of boxing knowledge. What's on the menu for him today, bro?
Let's talk about these interesting tweets that Crawford has been pinning out late last night and today.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, apparently in the last, I'd say 12 hours or so, Trans Crawford been real vocal on Twitter about the Sean Porter situation and the Errol Spence situation.
Mhm.
He made some pretty good points in my book. That I want to run through a couple key ones that he said, and I kind of want to get your input on it. The first thing he said, apparently he's talking to fans in these tweets too, by the way. So I guess it's like a fan interaction conversation. First thing he said, what caught my interest was, and I quote, "If anybody's been following my career and not listening to the nonsense that people say, then you know I've tried to fight all the champions in my division years ago. What more do you want? Talk is cheap. That is why I show up." With that tweet, would you say that was a true or false statement on his behalf? You think all he fought was the champions at 135 and 140 and 147? Literally, how do you feel about that tweet in itself?
About him fighting out the champions?
Yeah.
That's a true statement. I mean, pretty much, for the most part, since he's been down to 135, he's been collecting belts. So pretty much every fight that he's been trying to set up, except for a couple, it has been for a world title. So when it comes to that part of the statement, I can't disagree with him saying that. I mean, I totally agree with him on that one.
Yeah, I agree. His last, I think I counted earlier, his last 15 fights, he was either winning the title or defending the title. So by collecting belts, of course, you got mandatories you have to fight. Like the Hank Lundy's, I believe, was a mandatory fight. So yeah, I agree with that statement he made also. But he also made another statement that we kind of started me and you conversating about this. He's been calling Spence up for a long time. He made a statement, and I quote that, "Okay, y'all gonna act like I wasn't calling him out since at 140." Which is also, I feel, is a true statement. I actually think he called him out at 135 when me and you first started having this debate almost 8 years ago. So will you call that statement a true or false statement, or what would you say about that statement?
I mean, yeah, he been saying his name, but I mean, to me, I would say so what? I mean, yeah, you called him out. You might have said his name at 135 or 140, but you at 135 and 140. I mean, he at 147. So yeah, you might have mentioned his name or said, I wanna fight that guy at some point when I move up. But I mean, until you get to that weight class, me personally, I don't really pay any attention. Like, if that's like what Crawford is saying about Charlo, he's saying that he might want to go up to 154 to fight. I mean, Charlo or a champion. Until he go up to 154 and have a fight, I'm not gonna really take it too seriously. So yeah, he has mentioned Spence when he was at the lower weights, but I didn't really pay it in mind until he actually went up there and fought Jeff Horn. Is when I started saying, okay, this fight might be coming up in the near future.
I mean, I kind of agree, but I kind of disagree with that. I kind of think when you're in the weight class below and champion, and you're the undisputed champion at the weight class below, then you have the right to call out the champion above you. That's the whole point of being undisputed at the weight class. You expected to move up in weight and challenge the champions at that weight. But at that point in time, I believe they were telling him to get a belt at 140 first, which was at that time unheard of for a champion to tell a lighter undisputed champion that he needed to come up to your weight and get a belt first. It was like one of the first times I ever seen that in my lifetime. Which brings me to my next tweet, which was I guess he was talking to Sean Porter in this statement. He said, and I quote, "Wait, tell him to get a belt first." So I'm assuming with that tweet, a fan asked him to fight Sean Porter, and he was telling the fan to wait tell him to get a belt first. Does that sound familiar to you, or you think he's just shooting the shit?
It sounds familiar. I know exactly where it came from because when Porter was at 147, he had a belt. He wasn't entertaining Crawford. So with that statement, with that first part statement, I'm not upset until Sean Porter became his mandatory. Now, if Sean Porter was just a name that was like, hey, fight me, kind of like a Keith Thurman, like, hey, come on, fight me. And he was like, why should I fight you? You're not my mandatory. You don't have a belt. It's a waste of time. Cool. But, I mean, if you fought your mandatory with Green Machine, you fought Benavidez. So, if you can fight them guys, why not Sean Porter? I mean, if you can get the Spence fight or the Manny Pacquiao fight, then Porter got to wait. I mean, that is what it is. But if you can't get those two guys, then what are you gonna do, Crawford? I mean, if you know that people are saying, to me at this stage, I get tired of people talking about it. People saying, "Oh, you scared of Porter, you can't beat Porter, or you need to fight somebody that people say they want you to fight." One of the names that people always bring up is Sean Porter because people think Sean Porter will be a difficult fight for him. And like I said, with the triangle theory, by Spence fighting him and having somewhat of a tough fight with him, people can I guess compare the fights, and it would cause more interest in the fight because now you have both of the guys that fought Porter. So to me, I don't know why he would go around Porter. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's just playing with fans. But if he don't get Manny Pacquiao or Spence, and he don't fight Porter, and his excuse is because when I didn't have a belt, he didn't fight me, so I want to fight him. I think that's a bad excuse.
I don't think it's an excuse. I disagree with you. I don't think it was an excuse. I think he's pretty much like you said. He telling all them what they was telling him when he was coming up from 140. Was what I said earlier. Was unheard of from a weight class undisputed champion from a weight class below to have to come up to the higher weight class for all the champions to tell him to get a belt first. But you're the champion, so if you tell him to get a belt first and you have the belt, that's the duck beyond ducks. As far as him fighting his mandatory, he fought for the mandatory in the Green Machine and all that. Porter recently was just named a mandatory once he decided not to fight Ugas. When he declined to fight for that title, is when they made him the mandatory for Crawford's title, which was really in the last maybe 2 or 3 months or so. By I guess belt rules and belt standards, they give you up to a year to face your mandatory. So I'm pretty sure if a year comes by, he can't get those big names you mentioned, like the Pacquiaos or the Errol Spencers in the ring, which is to me would be a better fight. Then yeah, he probably had to fight Porter. He had to fall for the roadblock that they're trying to throw in his way, which is really showing Porter's just a roadblock at this point. He has no belt, and he's just a name to throw out there. Which brings me to my next tweet, where he said that he's on the wrong side of the street. I guess he was talking to a fan when a fan was pushing Sean Porter again. I'm pretty sure it was either Sean Porter or Errol Spence, one of those two names. And he said, "Nah, he's on the wrong side of the street," with the laugh emojis or the shoulder shrug emojis. Where do you think that statement come from? Or you think he's just making excuses still?
No, I wouldn't say he's making excuses on that part. I mean, because he's fighting with Top Rank, they're with PBC, and with promotional companies, a lot of time, if they hold most of the belts or the bigger name fighters in a division, they're gonna play the in-house game. So PBC pretty much played the in-house game against Terrence Crawford. They fought in-house fights, which helped Spence out in the long run and made him a bigger superstar and made him the A-side in the fight to me. But I agree with what Terrence Crawford is saying about him being separated, for being he on the wrong side of the street, so he kind of like throwing it back in Sean Porter's face. And I mean, that's what he want to do. I wouldn't get mad about it, but I need people to understand that don't get mad at PBC. And I'm not a PBC fanboy. I like certain fighters, but I don't really care about promotional banners or whatever you want to call PBC, because I really don't call them promotional banner. But I don't care about that because, I mean, to be honest, what the company's gonna do what's best for them when it comes to business. I mean, that's just the truth about it. Like I said all the time, Top Rank did the same thing with Manny Pacquiao when QVC was coming up. You know, Sean Porter wanted to fight Manny Pacquiao. Keith Thurman, some of these other guys wanted to fight Manny Pacquiao, and they pretty much did a Tim Bradley 3 fights back to back and kept it in house, and nobody was upset about it or blinked their eye with it. Everybody was like, oh, you know, nobody cared that Sean Porter was being left on the outside, or some of these other PBC fighters that was being left out. Now that the tables have turned, they pretty much use the same tactics that top rank used, and pretty much used it against them. But you know, the 147-pound division, and pretty much is keeping Crawford on the outside probably until Spence beat Ugas. Now, like with the Sean Porter fight, if he can't get, like I said, the Spence and the Pacquiao fight, he wants to fight in the summer. And I know you have up to a year to do your mandatory, but if you don't have those 2 guys and you want to fight sometime this year, I hope you don't plan on waiting the whole year to fight. So in that case, if Sean Porter you're mandatory, and if he activated, he's gonna have to take that fight. And if he don't, it's not gonna look good for him.
Again, I disagree with you. I disagree wholeheartedly. Actually, I think by him making that statement, he's on the wrong side of the street. I think people use that excuse when it fits their narrative. When Crawford came up from 140 and was calling him out, verbatim, Spence said, I want to clean up my side of the street first. Nobody called Spence a duck for saying that move. Nobody called Spence nothing. Spence got no backlash for saying so. He didn't say, you ducking Crawford. He didn't get none of that. He said, I'm cleaning up my side of the street first. People applauded that statement.
You saying?
Hold on. I'm gonna finish.
You saying Spence didn't catch heat?
No, he did.
Saying that?
No, he did not. Who gave him heat for saying so?
When they met at that fight, and he told him, I'm gonna clean my side of the street, and I'm gonna take the easier route and fight Porter. He don't catch hell to this day for that statement.
From Crawford fans, but not from his side of the street fans. Nobody. I mean, well, this is what I'm saying. You were telling me, all right, let's put it in perspective. Crawford, Spence was literally saying he's not on my side of the street. Was what he said. Let me clean. Was the same way as saying let me clean my side of the street first. Sean Porter is not on Crawford's side of the street, but your Spence fans are giving him slack for saying I'm not going to fight him. Like y'all, it's kind of like y'all fitting the narrative. Y'all fitting that narrative to fit your argument. Because literally, the way y'all pushing Porter to fight Crawford, it's the same way we was pushing. Our Crawford fans was pushing Spence to go ahead and fight the undisputed champion at that time, coming from 140. It's the same. It's legit the same argument. The only difference is Sean Porter has no belt now. Crawford was coming up from 140 as the undisputed champion. Was told to get a belt first. He went and got a belt and got told that now he has to wait on his side of the street while this guy got all the other belts. Was basically saying, yeah, we're gonna ice you out. We're gonna fight ourselves and ice you out. Pretty much what they was doing, what you admitted to. You saying they had all the belts and they fought in-house fights. Mm-hmm. So now that Crawford has a belt and just been sitting idle by design, I will say it was by their design for him to have that one belt sitting in idle. Now y'all just throwing roadblocks from the other side of the street, and y'all don't see the hypocrisy in that conversation. You don't see the hypocrisy at all.
No, because Porter is his mandatory. Like who are you gonna fight? This is the thing. And let's be real about it. Spence got more options than Crawford. He had more, so he could play the game a little different than Crawford can play the game. Crawford's in a position where he haven't had anybody to fight. So this is your opportunity to fight somebody that everybody's been calling for you to fight. During that time where Spence
everybody was calling for him to fight Spence.
Repeat that.
Everybody was calling for him to fight Spence when Crawford was coming up from 140. Everybody was saying that was the fight to be made. To this day, people are still. That's the biggest fight. Yeah. 8 years ago, we were saying this fight was the fight to be made.
Yeah, that's a fight to be made. But
so why? That's why I don't understand. You don't understand the hypocrisy in it. We've been me and you've been having this debate. The whole reason why we started this podcast is because we've been having this debate. This debate is what started us. I ain't gonna say as friends per se. This is what we knew, that we had a friend that had a common love for boxing the way we had a love for boxing. Was that conversation? Those two fighting. Mm-hmm. So I want you to understand this. Understand the question. Don't dodge the question. This is the simple and plain question.
Go ahead.
You do not see the hypocrisy in a high demand fight where fans say he should fight this person. You don't see the hypocrisy in saying he's on the wrong side of the street then, but now that fans are calling him to fight somebody else, you don't see the hypocrisy in it.
I'm gonna tell you
Yes,
why.
yes or no? Yes or no?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you why it's not. I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why it's not. Because when Spence did what he did, now I see what he was doing, why he was doing it. It made sense. It don't make sense for Crawford to turn down a Porter fight. He's trying to become more marketable. He's trying to put himself out. He's trying to make the fight a more of a 50-50 split, I guess, as far as them making a fight. He needs to fight somebody to prove his point. During this point, when Spence didn't fight Crawford, he fought Kell Brook, he fought Porter, he fought Mike Garcia, he fought Danny Garcia. He's getting ready to fight Ugas. If he beat Ugas, that'll be 3 belts. In the process, he's had 3 pay-per-views. So when he was on the other side of the street, he was creating space between him and Crawford because he knew then that would be the biggest fight in boxing. So I mean, from a fan perspective, we don't want to hear that, but I understood what PBC and Spence were doing from a business standpoint. I don't understand what Crawford would do by turning down a Porter fight. It would only kill his markability by fighting Josita Lopez or fighting some other unknown guy. So it will only hurt him further not to fight Porter unless he gets the Manny Pacquiao or Spence fight, which I understand. But if he can't get one of those fights, the position he in, it don't make boxing or business sense to not fight Porter. Spence, now that we look forward from that 3 years ago when he was like, you on the other side of the street, get a belt and this and that, and you should have had whatever he said. I get what he was doing there because it made business sense. Because now he is a A-side. He is a cash cow. He is a top 3 or 4 boxer in the world as far as markability in the game, behind probably Joshua, Wilder, and Canelo. And so he probably 4 or 5 is probably the most marketable boxer in the world. And that happened.
I'm gonna ask you a question. I'm gonna ask you a question real quick. I'm gonna ask you a question. Without saying money or marketability, without saying any of those phrases, I want you to ask this one little question.
You can't take that out.
I can. I'm gonna show you because let's listen to the question.
Okay.
All right. What is the difference between between Spence saying I'm gonna wait to clean up my side of the street first to an upcoming undisputed champion from the weight class below, which means whether you want to admit it or not, he's the mandatory for all titles. Whatever title he chose at what weight class he was coming up to, he could have chose any champion he wanted to. He earned that right to be. What is the difference between one fighter saying I want to clean up my side of the street first, win the belt first? Why are those being counted as excuses? But when Crawford said I'm done with the Porter talk. What is the difference?
So what is the difference?
Yeah,
it's no different if you take the business side out. When it comes to marketability,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You can't give Spence. You can't give Spence. I'm not gonna say a pass, but you can't give him an excuse by saying, "Oh, that was a smart business move. That was a smart business move." You can't count that and then blame Crawford. Look at me. You can't count that and then blame Crawford when he's tired of playing your games. You gotta understand, this man been chasing this man since a weight class below. The first thing he heard was he's on the wrong side of the street. No, first he heard win that belt first, which is, like I said, was unheard of. So he won the belt. Then he heard you're on the wrong side of the street. This man has been hearing nothing but excuses from Spence, and y'all giving Spence the pass because it made smart business sense. So I'm consistent. This is what I'm trying to say. Consistency always wins at some point. But because I'm gonna finish. I promise I'm gonna let you talk. I'm gonna finish. Consistency always wins because it's the same way people was blaming Pacquiao for fighting the Margaritos and Tim Bradley's 3 times in a row, and then Marquez is 4 times in a row. Those same people was complaining about Top Rank doing that. I also complained about it. I never said Pacquiao. I never said it made it business sense for Pacquiao to fight Marquez 4 times. I could have said that, but I never said that. I never made the excuse to say, "Oh, it's better marketing from Pacquiao to fight Margarito." I never made that argument. So that's why I say, without mentioning business, as a real boxing fan, why is it not counted as a double standard to say he's on the wrong side of the street of me now?
I didn't say it's not a double standard, but you got to understand what Spence did is showing.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's showing. I mean, you can't say what you. Ask yourself this question: if they had made that fight as soon as he came up, would the fight be as big as it is now? No. If they made that fight as soon as he came up, with Spence had been the A side in the fight, or with Crawford had been the A side, ask yourself that question.
I'm gonna ask you a better question.
If he had made that fight when he first came up, Crawford would have been the A side because he was undisputed at 140. He had a belt at 135, and all Earl Spence had was the Kell Brooks win. So if he had fought him as soon as he came up, he wouldn't have the leverage he have now.
You want to know why that fight would have still been huge, whether he won the belts or not? Because me and you've been calling for this fight 8 years ago.
Yeah, me and you, we're not casuals. We're hardcore boxing fans. The casuals are even interested now,
bruh. Whether that fight would happen, let's say this then. If you want to do this, you want to say it could come up from 140, that fight wouldn't have been huge. When it would have been huge was right after the Jeff Horn fight. At that point in times when the fight was pretty much overflowing. This is when Crawford won the belt. Matter of fact, yeah, I say that's when Crawford won his belt, and it was Spence. Just finished beating Sean Porter, not Sean Porter. Who he beat for the belt?
Kell Brooks.
Kell Brooks, there you go. He just finished beating Kell Brooks overseas. To me, that fight would have still been as huge as it is now.
I agree with that.
It wouldn't have been. So what fight threw it over the top? Was it Was it the Garcia fight?
No, it pretty much what threw it over the top is the same thing with Mayweather and Pacquiao. Over the last year and a half, 2 years, we done had a split between Crawford and Spence fans. So every day these Crawford and Spence fans are going back and forth. They going back and forth. You scared. Spence is the A side. You need to take the 40, huh?
What was the downfall? What was the excuse made when the Pacquiao Mayweather fight finally happened?
The excuse made it took too long for them to make the fight.
Exactly.
That was excuse, but it still sold 4.5 million pay-per-views. So I mean, I get what you're saying from a fan perspective, but they are not fans. Let's look at it a better way.
Let's say the fight don't happen for another 3 years. By that point, Crawford be about 38 years old. Would you give Spence credit for beating a 38-year-old Crawford?
No, not now. I mean, he'll get some credit, but he won't get the same credit he would get now.
That is my point. That is my only point. This video going kind of long. We'll make a part 2. I promise you we'll make a part 2. But we had to cut this video short. This is CTB. It's 10 Tuck Boxing. Cut him out of here, man.
All right, everybody. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification button, comment. Tell everybody about it. Let's keep this channel growing. You know why? Because we love boxing and you love boxing. But most of all, peace and love, and we out of here.